Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Western governments have deployed the most sweeping economic sanctions in modern history. Over 20,000 punitive measures have targeted Russia's financial systems, energy exports, technology imports, and even luxury goods. The logic was clear: isolate the Kremlin, choke off its war chest, and pressure Moscow into retreat. Yet, 2 years later, Russia's economy remains not only intact but seemingly thriving, reporting growth rates of 3.6% in 2023 and 4.1% in 2024. Russia has even re-entered the list of the world's top 10 economies, a paradox that's left many international observers puzzled. But this resilience, on closer inspection, is less a testament to economic health than to a wartime transformation fueled by unsustainable mechanisms. At the core lies Russia's abundance of natural resources, oil, gas, and wheat, commodities that remain indispensable on global markets. Russia accounts for 6% of global oil reserves, a quarter of global natural gas, and consistently ranks among the top grain exporters. These resources have allowed Moscow to blunt the effects of sanctions. While Western powers attempted to cap energy prices, Moscow redirected exports to Asia. In 2023, India and China emerged as primary buyers of Russian oil, with combined daily imports exceeding 4 million barrels. Russia's monthly oil revenues rebounded to nearly $15 billion, exceeding pre-war figures. Grain has become another strategic weapon. In 2022, Russia exported a record-breaking 45 million tons of wheat, buoyed by its dominance in global grain production. Strategic logistical partnerships, such as the China-Russia Grain Railway Corridor, dramatically reduced transportation time and further entrenched Moscow's position as a key supplier. In essence, Russia has weaponized its geography and commodities, turning basic needs into instruments of leverage. Yet the most revealing shift is the emergence of a full-fledged war economy. With 6% of GDP funneled into defense spending, higher than the US during the Iraq War, Russia has restructured its economy around the military-industrial complex. Factories operate around the clock. Tank output has increased 5-fold, drone production nearly 17-fold, and ammunition stockpiles have surged. Over 500,000 jobs have been created in defense sectors, offering salaries significantly above the national average and injecting liquidity into depressed regions. This militarized stimulus has created an economic mirage, an artificial boom driven by state-sponsored arms manufacturing. It's a cycle where war drives employment, and employment sustains consumption. Retail sales jumped by nearly 9% in 2024. In Moscow, average monthly incomes reached the equivalent of $2,800, boosting demand even as inflation soared. Yet this demand isn't rooted in a diversified economy. It's built on military largesse, conscription bonuses, and regional subsidies. Russia's financial maneuvers have further buttressed its economy against Western attacks. Anticipating the crisis, the Kremlin had already de-dollarized much of its reserves after the 2014 Crimea sanctions, pivoting to euros, Chinese yuan, and gold. When $300 billion in foreign reserves were frozen in 2022, Moscow leaned on these alternative assets. It enforced mandatory foreign exchange conversions and linked the ruble to gold at a fixed exchange rate, engineering a short-term rebound after an initial collapse. Additionally, Russia developed its own financial infrastructure, building alternatives to Western systems. The SPFS payment network, modeled after SWIFT, facilitated trade with 12 partner countries. In 2023, trade with China alone reached $240 billion, with the yuan comprising 40% of Russia's forex transactions. India's purchases of discounted oil surged, and Russian imports, often circumventing sanctions, arrived through Central Asia and the Middle East. Russia even resorted to dismantling commercial electronics to source banned components for its missiles. In Africa and parts of Asia, Moscow has deepened ties through transactional diplomacy, offering arms and grain in exchange for mineral rights and political support. Meanwhile, precision tools, machine parts, and other restricted goods continue to enter Russia through opaque supply chains. As one Russian official quipped, "If it doesn't say military use, we can get it." But beneath the surface, serious vulnerabilities persist. Inflation stands at 9.5% in 2024, more than double the central bank's target. Food prices have surged, the cost of bread alone is up 40% since the war began. To contain inflation, the central bank hiked interest rates to 16%, stifling investment and strangling civilian sectors. Skilled workers are leaving in droves, at least 10% of IT professionals have fled, and university students are applying abroad in record numbers. Social services are also being squeezed. Defense now consumes nearly 30% of Russia's national budget, leaving fewer resources for healthcare, education, and welfare. The war economy, though effective at short-term stimulation, is cannibalizing the civilian sphere. If prolonged, this imbalance risks producing a classic case of Dutch disease, where over-reliance on commodities and defense spending hollows out the broader economy. So why hasn't Russia's economy collapsed? The answer lies in three pillars: resource exploitation, war mobilization, and pivoting eastward. But this is not a model of long-term prosperity, it's a fragile workaround shaped by conflict and sanctioned loopholes. Western sanctions, while severe, underestimated the adaptability of authoritarian economies and the willingness of global South nations to prioritize self-interest over geopolitics. Yet the deeper question remains: how sustainable is this path? As the war drags on and civilian sectors wither, even Moscow's strategic resilience may fracture. The West's economic weaponry may have dulled, but Russia's war-fueled economy is not invincible. In the end, even the most fortified fortress can fall, especially when it's built on shifting sands of global instability and wartime necessity. Despite facing unprecedented Western sanctions, Russia's economy has not collapsed, in fact, it has grown. This illusion of resilience is powered by three main engines: energy exports, a full-scale pivot to wartime production, and deepened trade ties with countries like China and India. Russia has turned oil, gas, and grain into diplomatic tools, while defense spending now consumes nearly a third of the national budget. Military factories run 24/7, and wartime employment has boosted consumer spending. But this artificial boom masks growing instability: inflation is high, social services are strained, and skilled workers are fleeing. While sanctions haven't broken the economy, they've pushed it into an unsustainable war footing. Russia's current strength is real, but temporary, and increasingly brittle beneath the surface.